Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken here, back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. Very excited today. Our guest is not only an author, he is a professor. Paul Ingram is the Kravis Professor of Business at Columbia Business School in New York City. This guy is super smart, and he wrote a book, What Do You Really Stand For? And this is about aligning leadership values, corporate values, and employee values that will ultimately and ideally align with the customer's values. It's a win-win-win situation. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about a little bit more than that. But before we get into that, let me share with you a couple of things. Number one, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter, the Shepherd Letter. Every week I come out with a great article that's a tip on how to deliver a better experience. I include a fun cartoon. In addition to that, I have research when you go to the website, which by the way is hyken.com, Hyken.com. That's where you'll subscribe and you'll get access to my annual customer experience research. It's filled with stats and facts that will help you make better informed decisions about customer service and experience. And that you don't even have to give me your email address. Just click on the research tab. You get instant access to the research, and I hope you can use it and hope it benefits you. All right, we're going to talk to Paul Ingram from Columbia Business School and the author of What Do You Really Stand For? Paul, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shep. Great to be with you.
I'm excited today for two reasons. Number one, your new book, What Do You Really Stand For, is a great reason to be excited because we get to talk about basically what you stand for, your values, which gets infused into the culture. We're going to talk about how you align values of a company with the values of the individual employees, which is very powerful. But I also, the second reason, and I mentioned it to you, I'm so excited I don't have to mention the words AI, although I just did. That's the last you'll probably hear from it in this conversation.
Great. Yeah, me too. Love talking about culture and what people can do better when they're clear about their values.
Yeah. So, and your background, a professor at Columbia Business School, and you are the Kravis Professor of Business there, which you mentioned Henry Kravis, who we know from, is KKR, is that
KKR.
right? KKR, huge, I guess for lack of a better term, venture capital firm, investment.
Private equity.
Private equity. Yeah. Big. They've even done movies where this guy's, profiled. And He's the one. You're in the Kravis Business School building. You mentioned 11 stories, and that they funded your professorship. And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very generous.
In other words, people who are listening, this is a real smart dude we're talking to today. And this book, What Do You Really Stand For, just came out. So when you listen to the episode, you'll understand it's all about alignment of personal values and corporate values and creating the best experience possible internally and externally for employees and customers. So let's jump right into this. How do a company's core values directly impact the customer experience? And I know you said we really are kind of putting the cart before the horse. Maybe we need to start talking about personal values infused into corporate values. So I'll give you the opportunity to spin this any way you want.
Well, I like I think the place you started is a great one, the relationship between the customer and the organization. So let me offer a kind of general principle that any two entities interact more smoothly and more productively if their values are aligned. Right?
Boom.
So, two people connect, an organization and its customers connect and can appeal to each other if, in a sense, they value the same things. So values are our principles of our evaluation, the things that make for us anything else, good, bad, or important. So they say a lot about, say, what kind of product is appealing to a customer, what kind of brand is appealing. And, the way you frame the question, which I liked, it's a kind of angle I don't get very often, but how companies and customers align around values. In the book, I talk about Real Madrid, which is the world's most valuable sporting franchise. And it's an organization.
Or football, however you refer to it. Soccer.
Soccer, football, yeah. Love them or hate them, they're an organization that appeals to its fans based on values, right? So the best player for Real Madrid is not simply the one that's going to allow them to win the most games. They have to play the Real Madrid way. They have to represent the values of sportsmanship and teamwork and be an exemplar for the team and beyond, and draws a lot of fans. And when they can operate that way, they find that they succeed. They win the championship many years, but even if they don't win the championship, if they operate the Real Madrid way according to the values that their fans are looking for, the fans support them. So the same with any kind of organization. Think about the products, the brands that you really love, and I bet you can identify values that they're representing that are really resonant for you.
Yeah, I'm going to say there's like a tripod. And if any one of those legs of the tripod are missing, it's going to fall over. And those legs are, number one, company values or corporate values. Number two, the customer values. When they align with the corporate values, what they want, as you mentioned, the sports franchise, customers or fans expect this out of their team. The team wants to deliver that, but they've got employees. Those are the people on the field. Those are the people representing the organization really at every level. And if they don't do their job, it's going to be incongruent and create probably a textured experience, not a good texture either, one that's up and down. You're not sure what you're going to expect. I love Costco, and boy, the values I believe that company has of what they promise their customers. Number one, they deliver it. Number two, I love that. So now I'm in alignment with them. And number three, every time I walk in there, I don't know if there's a friendlier bunch of people on the planet. These people are amazing.
Yeah, I love that tripod, and I'm completely with you. I'll even go a little bit farther, that if the values of the people who populate the company, like the staff at Costco, are misaligned with the corporate values that the company wants to represent to the outside world, it's not going to work. The employees are going to view it cynically. They're going to be demotivated. So really the ideal, before we even get to the customer, is that we have to articulate collective values as a department, as an organization, that are resonant with the people who make up the organization. Now, not only that, because of course companies exist for a purpose. They're trying to achieve a strategy. So you got to have an eye to the strategy as well, but you also have to know who makes up your organization and who do you want to bring into the organization. And if you can get that alignment, that's where, according to my research, you get employees who want to be there. They stay in the organization even if they get offered an extra buck an hour to move down the road. They collaborate more effectively. They share information. As you said, if the organization is representing the values of the employees and communicating with the customers, and the customer walks in the door and they say, hey, I belong here, then you've got this experience that just transcends anything that you can put on the shelves.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a number of different examples in my head. But the short version of this is, by the way, you can have amazing corporate values and employees can align with those values, but the leadership better demonstrate those values because any incongruency is going to be a problem. Yeah. And that's where you fall into it. I wrote a book. Actually, it was probably about 10, 12 years ago, The Amazement Revolution, which hit the New York Times bestseller list, believe it or not. And one of the chapters was about creating fun, a culture of fun specifically. But fun is not about having a good time. Fun is about F-U-N, fulfillment, uniqueness, and next. Are our employees fulfilled? Are they exploited for unique talents, for at least part of their job that gives them a sense of fulfillment that they're doing what I'm good at doing, or I'm doing what I'm good at doing? And then the third piece of it, N, is for next. What's next? What's exciting? What gets me back the next day? And there was a gentleman named Brian Keeley, I believe was his name. Keeley for sure. Brian, my memory might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was the CEO of Baptist Health South, a big medical chain. I've talked about this on the show before. This guy believed that if he created what was known as destination employment, people would never leave, and for all the reasons that you shared. But the only way that happens is for all the reasons that you shared.
You got it.
Values align with what the employees expect and want out of their lives. And if that's the way, we spend at least a third of our life working for a company, if not more. Shouldn't it be a great value to us at every level?
Yeah, absolutely. Sharing values with the people you work with is really beneficial to the employee. Those are the jobs you love to show up with. You're motivated, you contribute. and also that you stay in those jobs. I did a study of turnover in a organization where we measured the values of all the individuals. We found that the people who were kind of aligned with the core of the organization, you'd have to raise their salary by 40% to get them to switch jobs. Which is to say, they get a lot of utility from being
Right.
part of the organization, right? And of course, because they love being part of the organization, they're producing, they're supporting their colleagues, and creating value. I'd love to add something about that acronym you offered. I really zeroed in on the uniqueness element there. And you remind me of a class that I teach quite a lot. I do it almost every week. I'll do it a little bit later this week for a group of executives from Morocco with a professional jazz musician. So New York City's the Center for Jazz, and we have this
Right.
kind of small group jazz, and we decompose their process as they're playing in front of a bunch of leaders. And one of the things that the leader of the band, his name's Chris Washburn, says is that he chooses for his small group jazz, he chooses players for their unique voice. So, he gives them space. What they offer makes the collective something it couldn't be elsewhere. And that he's bringing them in for what they can uniquely offer. And the players love that. I often ask them, who do you want to work with when you get a call from two band leaders? The top players in this small group jazz, they say, look, I want someone who wants really what I can bring to it. So that's a great angle in thinking about an organization, that you're hiring people for their unique contributions.
I love that. And as long as you stay in key, that's the
Right.
system that works.
Yes.
If the musician goes out of key. There was a gentleman, maybe you remember him. He passed away not that long ago, Judson Green. Is that a familiar name to you?
I don't think so.
He was president of Disney Attractions.
Mm.
He was amazing as a jazz pianist. And I'll never forget the first, I was in charge of a meeting for 200 some odd people at Disney Institute. And they said, I can get Judson Green to come out and do a keynote speech for us. The president of Disney Attractions, the theme parks, everything. So here's this unbelievable band playing jazz as people are walking in. And I get up there and they just said, and I kind of knew what was going on, so it wasn't a surprise, but the audience was blown away. The music stops. I'm up there to introduce everybody. Welcome to the conference. And our opening keynote speaker, ladies and gentlemen, president of Disney Attractions, Judson Green. The band starts playing again, and all of a sudden it stops. The piano player gets up, walks over, and says, hi, I'm Judson Green.
Beautiful.
But here's was his point. Everything that you just said, everybody has their role. And when they go off in solo, they got a lot of places they can go to stay within key, but they just have to stay within key. And it's the way it is in business. The system works for a certain reason, but you can walk a tightrope and flex either side and not fall off. It's just if you go too far. So I love that analogy. I know we're going to run out of time, but I have so many questions I want to ask you. Let's just jump into the customer centricity, because this is where the claim of the value of customer centricity, and I have a whole process, 6 ways to create that customer focused culture. You have to define what it is. You got to communicate it, train everybody to, but number 4 is that leader, supervisor, manager, anybody that has people working for them has to be the role model. Or else, if you don't treat people the way the customer is expected to be treated, don't expect them to do anything differently. What is your feeling about the reality of creating that customer centricity culture? Boy, that's a big 3 C's there. And how can you identify whether the leaders are truly customer focused or they're just, words?
Yeah, I love the way you put it. Where you've ended up is quite how I approach it. That when I look at organizations that really are fabulous at creating customer focus and great experience for the customers, they take care of their employees first, because you can't really be present and available and pulling in the same direction for the customer if you are not fully supported and respected yourself. So I think that's a great angle on it. And I would also take this idea of the leader being sort of the archetype of the experience you're trying to produce for the customer. I would say another way to put that is that again, we're just talking about building a culture, right? And a strong culture is where people agree around a set of values. And that's everybody. Certainly the leader can't dictate the culture, but the leader is probably the most amplified voice, right? So they can't dictate the culture, but if they are representing some different set of values, they can wipe out a very strong culture. So everything they do gets looked at through a magnified perspective. So whatever the culture is, customer centricity, innovation, any other set of values, the first among equals, I would say, is the person at top of the team, department, or the organization.
So why can't the leader dictate what the value should be? I mean, if I own a company or I'm brought in as a CEO and I really want to make sure that we're totally doing what we are the values that maybe they were the predecessor's values, maybe they're the founder's values, or maybe I'm the founder and I'm trying to create this culture. Why can't I dictate it? Why can't I hire people that are in alignment? Or
Yeah.
can I?
You can't. You can do that, right? So,
Mhm.
so this is going to hinge on the word dictate, right? So you can lead the culture, you can shape it. You can and you should communicate the values that you want, give them people guidance on how to represent them. Certainly, absolutely hire people who share those values. That's probably the most powerful mechanism you have. But in my language, that's not dictating, right? Because the culture is a collective product. It's an aggregation of everyone's values and
Mm.
beliefs. We may not be all equal in that aggregation, but everybody's contributing, right? So the way I put it is that culture frustrates authoritarians. So you can lead it, but you can't force it. So it's sort of like laying out the breadcrumbs so people will converge at where you'd like them to be. But as soon as you start trying to dictate it, well, then it's not culture. Then it's some other kind of coercive system, which is going to be, even if you can affect behavior that way, it's, I think, a second best to really pulling together a set of people that want to aspire to the same important things that you do.
All right, we're out of time, but I got to go with what Zappos.com, Tony Shea. He would hire for values. He had 10 core values. Now, these were the traits that people believed in. This is what his company believed in. He was very clear, 10, not 8, not 9, but you had to have the 10. And if you got here and you didn't showcase the 10 and demonstrate it, there was another place at another company that was probably better suited for you. In a way, I feel that is forcing and dictating the values. But I know it's such a difficult thing because, boy, good people, that doesn't mean they're all the same, but I think they do need to be in alignment at some level.
We're in agreement about that. We're in agreement. I would simply say you can choose the people. You can't force a value on someone, right? Because values have to be authentic.
You can't change somebody to do that. They've got to come with the value already.
Exactly. But should you be attracting and keeping people who share the values? I agree 100%. So we're in alignment on that.
Cool. All right. Final question. And I'm going to go back to your book. What do you really stand for? And this is the what one nugget of wisdom do you want to share out of that book that's going to make us go out and right now buy that book?
Great. Shep, we've talked about organizational cultures, which rest on the values of the people who make up them. But I'd like to say something about how important it is to each of us to have real clarity around our own personal values. So I've worked in the space for about 20 years. I've taken the better part of 20,000 executives through workshops where they come out of it with clarity around their top values. The book has chapters of processes you can do pencil in hand about clarifying your own values. It kind of gives you that hands-on approach. And what we find in research, and I found from so many of those thousands of executives that have gone through the workshops, that if you're really clear about your values and you keep them accessible. So my students, some of them CEOs, come out of my classes with a laminated card that represents their top values. Many of them keep it in their wallet, sometimes for 20 years. And when they're feeling a little beaten down, or they need to tap into ethics or authenticity, or they need some motivation, they take a look at those values, and we find the best kind of causal evidence through many experiments. You become more open. You're happier when you think of your values. You're ethical. Others trust you more. You're motivated. You're more resilient. Your stress goes down. So what I would encourage everybody to do is do some work to clarify your own values, coming up with exactly the same labels, the labels that resonate and bring you alive, and keep them handy, whether it's in your wallet or on your phone or on a coffee mug, as I have at most moments. Being able to check into your values even multiple times a day actually brings out the best in you and produces better work.
I love that. I love that. I want everybody to go out and get the book. What do you really stand for? Paul, thanks so much for being on the show.
So much fun, Shep. Thank you.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We'll be back next week with another interview. Until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.